Great topic, and delighted that one of the leaders of our country in the Senate, Senator Marco Rubio, has taken it on. Senator Marco Rubio from Florida joins us now to talk about higher education and reform. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Great speech that you gave. Great talk.
Well, I appreciate it. We got to do something too, but I guess it's good to always line it out first.
Well, I think, and your recommendations are great, but I think the most compelling part is your own story. Would you mind telling that at a school and then law school and work?
Yeah. So, my parents were working class Americans, worked in the service sector. My dad was a bartender primarily. My mom was a cashier. She was a maid at a Las Vegas hotel for a while. So they never made a lot of money. They lived the American dream because they wanted us to have a better life, but they never made a lot of money. And so for us, what they always wanted is for us to be able to go to school and study and have a better job than the one that they did. But they couldn't afford to pay for it. And so the way I went to school was a combination of Pell Grants and work study and summer jobs and student loans, and a significant amount of student loans by the time I finished law school, over $100,000. In fact, when I swore into the Senate 3 years ago, I had over $100,000 in student loans. Now I look at today, we have $1 trillion of student loan debt sitting out there, and people that are graduating colleges and universities and are unable to find jobs. And that's compelling for two reasons, and I don't need to explain that to you, Bill, and I know your audience understands it from listening to you all the time. We have this dramatic change going on in our economy to this post-industrial era where there are good jobs being created, not enough of them because the economy's not growing fast enough, but the good jobs of the 21st century require a higher level of training. Maybe not a 4-year degree, maybe it's a technical degree or a certificate program in how to fix a machine or how to help build one. Last night I was meeting with some business folks who say they have a shortage of qualified welders, for example.
Yep.
The point is, you need more skills than ever before, and our system of delivering skills, our education system, is not 21st century. It's built on 20th century concepts that no longer are truly meeting the needs of our students. So the single mom with 2 kids who has to work full-time and raise her family, she has no way to go back to school because there's no programs designed for someone like her that's flexible enough. The individual who's lost their job because it was automated or outsourced needs to be retrained, can't access the system. And then we have a bunch of young people graduating high school and going into college and getting degrees that don't lead to jobs.
Right.
And that's a big problem because universities are feeding that, and they're giving students no information about their future prospects. And so one of the proposals I have is that students have a right to know before they go. Before you take out a student loan, the school you're at should tell you this is how much graduates from our school with your degree make. So you can make an informed decision about whether it's worth taking out, a Greek philosophy degree for $20,000 loans.
Watch it. This is PhD.
It might be worth it. Hey, listen, it might be worth it. Brother, you need to know.
Right? Yeah, if you're heading for talk radio, the PhD in philosophy actually turns out to work, at least for one of us. But I think I'm the only one. I actually think I'm the only one. So I got lucky. That was my degree. But if you were looking at this in terms of getting a job, it wouldn't make any sense at all. Can we go back to your story because it's particularly poignant the way you tell it, and this is, I think, part of the rub. If you were a student and someone told you get out of law school and you'll be making $50,000 a year, as you reported you were making your first job, and you owe $100,000, you're thinking, well, this is fine. I ought to be able to pay this off, in 3 or 4 years. Not so, though. It doesn't work like that. Your circumstances were, if you could describe those circumstances, living with your parents, planning to get married, planning to buy a house, you get the first bill, and you have trouble. But a lot of young people looking at that situation, if you gave them those numbers before they were in that situation, would say, looks pretty good to me.
I thought I was rich. I said that in the speech. And then first of all, I didn't realize the government took money right out of the check to begin with. I guess I knew that from having worked before. I didn't realize that the more you make, the more they take.
That's it.
So that was the first part of it. Then I was helping my parents. I was still living with them, and I felt after all these years I need to start, helping them. So I, started paying what I say was rent, but basically half the mortgage while I was still living with them. Then I was trying to save because I wanted to get married the next following year, which I did, and I also wanted to buy a house or at least have enough saved up to move into an apartment. When you started adding all of that up, and then this $1,000-something bill starts coming in, suddenly you're tight again, and perhaps I realized I couldn't afford to pay the full $1,500. So then you start doing deferrals and forbearance. You start delaying the paying on the bill for 6 months or for a year, but the interest is compounding.
Yes.
So suddenly the 100 turns into 115 over a period of time or whatever, and you're paying at interest rates much higher than the mortgage rates in some instances.
Yes.
So that's really the quandary, and again, I don't regret my investment in education.
Right.
I really do not. But I wish that I had more information about that, because I probably could have chosen to go, for example, to a public law school versus a private one, because it would have saved me money in the long term. And at the end, no one really asks me anymore where you got your law degree.
That's right. That's right. I had a similar situation, very similar to yours. I graduated in the 70s and owed a comparable amount of money for that period of time. But again, the same thing. And people need to be told, and that's one of your recommendations. I guess you and Senator Wyden have worked on that, right?
We have, and the resistance, of course, has come from academia, particularly some of the four-year universities, because they believe it will discourage people from going into the humanities and the liberal arts.
Right.
And it's not designed for that at all. It's designed to give information, and ultimately, some people want to be lifelong learners, and they can afford to do that. That's fantastic. Or perhaps they want to teach. So
That's right. That's right.
If you want to teach, there's a role in some of those degrees. But I think we have too many people getting those degrees because they're not leading to employment. And I think at a minimum, people deserve to make that decision based on information.
That's right. Truth in lending, so to speak. That's exactly right. Now, tell us what else about the higher education establishment. I've been battling with them for a while. I had this hypothesis that tuition goes up with the availability of federal funds. I think it even goes up without the availability of federal funds because it's a seller's market.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a hypothesis. I think that's a fact at this point. I mean, you've seen them eat up every increase that there's been with additional tuition increases. So here's the other thing I know you've talked about before. So right now, what is a bachelor's degree? It basically is a collection of courses that a college, an accredited college, says, if you do these things with us, we will give you a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or whatever. They basically collect these courses and certify that course of work as having reached a certain benchmark. But now learning is available on so many formats. And the argument that I've been making and others have made before me is, what if we allowed people to package learning from various different sources into what is the equivalent of a degree? So, for example, let's say you've worked for 10 years in an industry. We give you credit for the work experience that you've had there. Plus, you're taking 5 online courses, one from MIT, one from Harvard, one from Stanford, one from the University of Florida, online, and you're completing that coursework. Plus, you've got 30 hours at the local community college. Plus, you do an unpaid internship that also qualifies to credit. Plus, you also test into proficiency. For example, if I want to get 4 hours of credit in Spanish, I shouldn't have to take a course. Let me test into it. I can speak it, and I can write it.
Right.
Someone would package all that together and say, this is just like a bachelor's degree. That's something that I think in the 21st century we need to be doing more of. And the thing standing in the way of that, of course, is that the accreditation boards controlled by accredited colleges won't allow you to accredit courses. They only allow you to accredit colleges. So Mike Lee has a proposal to return that to the states, which I think is very promising. And I go one step further and say, in addition, we should create a national, not a federal platform, but a national platform that heavily influenced by the industry itself. Let industry begin to certify coursework. So if you need software engineers, you could say, we will certify you as a software engineer if you complete this curriculum. We've scanned the curriculum all over the country, and here are the courses that we accredit. And if you do a combination of these from wherever it is you get them, we will accredit you as a certified software engineer, and you can work for us or anybody else in the industry. And that's a competition for the traditional college. It's also an alternative, and I think that's an idea that holds promise as well. Yeah,
you talked about your own experience, your state, Florida, and great online courses. Then you mentioned Embry-Riddle, aeronautical, and here you have these examples of people getting the same competence and expertise through an online at a lot less cost.
Bill, here's the thing with that. Those courses are great, but they cost almost as much as if you sat in a classroom. And what's great about the 21st century is we have equally qualified courses that you can get free, those massive online coursework that's now expanding. I mean, innovation is creating all this for us. We just need to create the mechanisms where they can be packaged. And last but not least, vocational training. Yes. We need engineers, we need plumbers, we need pipe fitters, we need electricians, we need the welders. We need people that can fix these high-tech machines. We need airplane mechanics. We need all that. We still do, and those are strong middle-class jobs, and we've stigmatized that. And we could be teaching kids those skills while they're still in high school.
Yeah, no, that's right. People who special place in hell for people who have contempt for people who know how to do stuff, know how to do things. Those jobs can't be outsourced, Senator Rubio.
They cannot be. You cannot outsource. I mean, I suppose you can outsource portions of it, but I was talking to someone yesterday that runs a paper mill, a big, and they said, we have a shortage of qualified labor. We need people that can come in here and fix these machines, service these machines, install them, bring in the new ones. We don't have enough people to do that. And these are good $50,000 a year jobs. And the reason why is because those jobs have been stigmatized. Somehow, because if your shirt gets dirty, it's a bad job in the minds of some people in society. We've got to change that thinking because it's not true.
Yeah. We saw the other day, Senator Rubio, this is great stuff you're doing, Virginia College of Medicine and Health graduates, most of whom are nurses, going into a job, make more money in their entry point than graduates of the University of Virginia at Charlottesville, the so-called prestigious university. And, and it's a great job. And these are jobs that we need. So we need to rethink this whole thing. The whole job thing and education thing has been shaped by the lens of the people running higher education, which may not be the same lens that a lot of us see the world through.
Well, it's interesting. After I gave my speech on Monday, there was a panel right after me. This was an event hosted by National Journal. And in the panel right after me, it was the heads of 3 universities or 3 colleges. I didn't say, but I got a report when I left. Their answer, what their answer was, how to turn all this around. We just need more money. We just need more federal funding, more state funding, pour more money into the same system, and we'll do better. What they're not talking about is the 31-year-old single mom who I know, who's a receptionist at a medical clinic, who gets stuck in a $28,000 a year job, whose only chance of improving her future and that of her children and her family is if she's able to go back to school and become an ultrasound technician or a lab technician. But she can't because she has to take her kids to school in the morning, work 9 hours, pick them up from aftercare, help them with their homework, feed them, put them in bed. Now it's 10 o'clock at night. When is she going to go to school? And how is pouring more money into the broken status quo system going to help her?
You got this. Hang on. We're going to take a break. We got a lot of callers for you, Senator Rubio. Marco Rubio from Florida on top of this issue. So glad to see him in the game, boy. Senator Marco Rubio stays with us. We'll take a call or two. Did a very important speech. We're going to put a link up to the speech on our website. A really fine piece of work. Let's go to calls, and then I have another question for the senator. Lisa in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi. Great to be on your show. I just wanted to, agree with the senator. I went back to school at the age of 34 with 2 young kids, and my husband was working, but it was very difficult for us to not only afford it, but the hoops I had to jump through and the lack of
information, help, guidance.
Well, the help from the school just with my schedule and trying to get, certain classes working around my kids' schedule, and they just did not care at all. I did end up graduating with my, PharmD, and I'm working. I got a great job, but it was a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, once you get that tuition, a lot of these places forget you. Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, that's actually my sister's in that. So she was working. She had never finished school. She was working in an insurance company, basically as a paper processor there, processing paperwork. She decided to go back to school to become a teacher, but she had 2 boys to raise. She lived with us and our parents, so that helped a bit. But it was still tough because all the coursework was designed for 19-year-olds that, didn't have families instead of a 34-year-old that needed to go back to school. Today, she's finished. She also got her master's. She's a vice principal at a school in Miami, and she makes 4 times as much as she was making before she went to school. So my point is we need to have a system of delivering learning to people with all kinds of different life situations going on. And this call is a perfect example of the people that the current system is leaving behind or making it harder for every person like her that's able to make it through. There's countless others who are not married, for example, who are single parents, who are struggling to put this all together, and it becomes impossible for them.
That's right. Let's talk about an intriguing idea. There's two things I want to talk about. At what rate how do we determine how people should pay the money they owe back? One, and two, the whole idea of the student investment plan, which I find intriguing. You talk about involving the private sector.
Yeah, well, my argument on the repayment is you can already pay right now. It's an option that you can opt into. You can already pay based on your income. You can already pay back. A lot of people don't know about it, and so they don't access it. My argument is that we should allow students to pay back their loans based on what it is, a percentage of what they're making, income-based. Because while it may be less than the normal payment would be, it's better than default, which will ruin their credit and obviously hurt the government by increasing the amount of liability we take on with these loans. As far as the human investment portion of it, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like venture capital, but in people. An individual, I think this would really help for graduate students, will go out and take their GPA and their work and career study and history to an investment group and say, this is who I am, this is who I want to become, and this is how much it's going to cost for me to get there. If you invest in me by paying my tuition in my school, instead of me having to take out a loan, I will repay you, I'm just throwing out a number, 4% of my income for 10 years after I graduate.
Right.
Now, that 4% over 10 years may add up being more than what they invested in you, at which point they made a great investment. It may turn out to be less than what they invested in you, at which point that's the risk they took. I don't think this is an answer for everybody, but I think this will be an answer for many people, especially those that are going into high-demand fields who don't want to take on student loan debt.
Do you know about the Thiel Fellows, the Peter Thiel?
Yes.
This is an amazing thing. Go ahead.
I mean, it's amazing, but he's actually paying them to drop out of college and actually start businesses and new ideas.
Right. But
which is an interesting concept in and of itself, because what he's saying is, you already have those ideas and you're ready to put them into practice. That's great innovation. I mean, we are looking for innovation.
Right.
We're looking to add options to the menu of how people can learn.
So, Senator Rubio, when I was, just to pick on that sore point again, when I was getting my PhD in Greek philosophy, you think I could have persuaded Goldman Sachs to ante up?
Maybe. I mean, maybe they needed to learn more about the Greek market or something.
You're kind. You're kind. This whole venture, tell me about it, because people entering into the debate about higher education are often surprised by what they find. If you walk into the temple, the keepers of the temple do not particularly like it. They don't take criticism well, is what I've found.
Well, they're very insulated, clearly, because tenure insulates them. They believe they're above politics in many ways.
Right.
But ultimately, why do we invest in public education in this country? Because it is preparing a workforce. It is human infrastructure preparation that allows us to grow and expand our economy. The 21st century economy looks different than the 20th century economy. It demands a certain type of learning, a certain type of skill acquisition, and we need people to learn this stuff faster than ever before. We have an opportunity gap in America, and I said it in a speech, between haves and have-nots. Those that have higher education or some advanced education, and those that do not have it. A Pew study yesterday found that the gap between college graduates and non-college graduates on an income basis is as wide as it's ever been. We can close that gap, but we have got to make the higher education more affordable, more flexible, and more available.
And that definition has to alter. There have to be lots of ways to get a, quote, higher education, right?
That's correct, right.
Thank you, Senator Rubio, and
Thank you.
Congratulations on entering into this fray. Your voice is very much needed. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.